So in this position of, in this time of more or less stalemate, where what would be the Kremlin strategy and tactics? How it differs? What we can expect, and what can be the game changers to kind of move it?
Well, I would say 100%. The Kremlin, at least during the current political regime and current political leadership, cannot forget about one goal: containment of the West in Ukraine. They cannot let Ukraine go. They will have to keep Ukraine in their embraces. But tactics, of course, could be different, because they do understand that to promote further, for instance, invasion and siege of Mariupol, it will be a real danger, because, well, the new round of sanctions will follow. That's why I do believe that, at least during the next couple of months, definitely, they will be trying to offer the West a kind of new concept of peaceful coexistence. Or let's think about collective management of the crisis. But it doesn't mean that they're backtracking, because they're in a bobsled mode. They cannot get out of the bob. But they will try to force the West to agree, to talk, to discuss the situation on their terms by, for instance, continuing brinkmanship. Well, the Russian naval ships, around Europe, or, for instance, flights without transponders. This is a kind of brinkmanship. But definitely the Kremlin is trying to find a balance between the logic, imperative of containment and the new restraints that they now understand do exist.
You say that, and so what is the danger in that?
Oh my God, the danger is that flexible means could be even much more perversive, much more threatening for Ukraine, by the way, than the violent one, that coercion, that simply military might. Why? Because flexible means would mean, well, bribing the Ukrainian elite, okay? Co-opting part of your position, okay? Or just helping Ukraine to have a financial breakdown, okay? This. And creating an illusion that the conflict, with the West, is just a regional, local conflict. It's about only Donbas, nothing else. And it will create an impression in the West that really it's not about civilization clash. It's not about, our difference in the interests. It's about something small and unimportant.
Same time, you say that Ukraine is just a card, and the Kremlin wants to sit with the West and, define a new world order. What's new about that? Wasn't it the strategy, for the Kremlin even before?
Strategy is the same, tactics is different. And looking at Ukraine, it seems to me the Kremlin team, at least in their statements, in their rhetoric, they kind of try also to find a balance. What is Ukraine for them? Is it a goal only to conquer Ukraine and only to put Ukraine in the Russian pocket? Then why? I don't think that Ukraine, still is the goal, although it's very important. It's Putin's project. It's Putin's personal project. But Ukraine more now, at the moment we are talking about, Ukraine more now the instrument that has to demonstrate the Kremlin elite where are the red lines. Are there in Ukraine or not? So it's kind of testing, testing the field. Secondly, Ukraine is becoming a trump card in the Russian conversation with the Western Americans. Putin apparently could say, I'm not saying he says, but he could say to Obama, or Lavrov could say to Kerry, you know what, you'll give us some control over Ukraine through Minsk II, for instance, through our impact on Ukrainian constitutional framework, okay? And we'll support you in Syria and Iraq. It's a pretty nice trade-off, okay? So in this context, Ukraine is a trump card.
And we always think about how much had been done, how much damage had been done, but where something where things didn't work, where in fact there was some success.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of things that didn't work, and there are a lot of mistakes and failures, both on the part of the West. West made so many failures. The West didn't anticipate something like that a year ago, okay? So it was a mistake, analytical and political. But there are so many mistakes that Putin and the Kremlin did. For instance, they never expected, firstly, that the West could unite and they united around sanctions. Secondly, they never expected, apparently, that Germany will betray Russia, quote unquote. That Germany will unite the West against Russia. And at the moment, it's Merkel, it's Berlin that made a rethinking of the German foreign policy and keeping the unity of Europe together. Thirdly, it seems to me that, our Russian side and our experts, us, never expected Ukrainians, such a kind of surge of national pride, of readiness to sacrifice, never expected that South and Southeast, a huge part of Southeast, will revolt and will choose the pro-Western trajectory and support the Kyiv administration. This is also a mistake. So many mistakes. Now it seems to me the Kremlin has started to think, where did we fail and what are our assets, etc. I'm not sure that they have adequate understanding of situation. I'm not sure.
Instead, so during this, the whole conflict, there are already a lot of new myths about the West and about the Russia. What is deceitful about them?
All myths, all stereotypes, all misperceptions are dangerous, deceitful, etc. One of the myths, it's an old, ancient myth that has been replicated by many Westerners, by many Russians. And the myth is about Russia's genetic code. Russia is just an authoritarian country. Russians love, to be subjugated. They love their leaders, and they will be loyal and will be mobilized around Putin. And, the more you just apply sanctions, the more they will mobilize around Putin. Bullshit, it's foolish. Because so many things demonstrate that Russians are becoming consumption subjects, and they have been very much interested in well-being, in their economic interests, and looking into their freezer. Okay. Second myth is the myth, about accommodating Russia. For instance, if we accommodate Russia on Ukraine, if we accommodate Russia on NATO, if we just, stop irritating Kremlin and Putin, they will be so nice, they will be so gracious to us. We'll have, a kind of a constant ceasefire and peace, and it will be a Kantian peace, okay? It's nothing far from the truth. Because, in fact, the West had been retrenching constantly during the previous 20 years. And NATO wasn't dangerous for Russia. They stopped to expand a lot of time ago, already. And still, weakness of the West provoked the Russian political system, to start getting reckless and assertive. So, the list could be continued. On Ukraine, it seems to me that a lot of myths about Ukraine. Just a couple of hours ago, I met several guys from the Western experts, by the way, very respected experts from the United States, who are architects of the myth. By the way, they're in favor of accommodating Russia on everything, Well, we have to understand Russians. Secondly, it's, what is happening in Ukraine, it's not strictly about Russia's aggression, it's about Ukrainian civil war, but how Kalashnikov and Grad missiles, re-emerged in Donbas, okay? So it's about Ukrainian DNK. So this is the example about, myth about Ukrainians. For instance, they're saying, we cannot arm Ukrainians. You know why? Because Ukrainians, this is kind of nation, they're just like Russians, they're so corrupted. If we bring them ammunition, I don't know what kind of non-lethal weapons, they will sell it to Russians, okay? So we cannot give it to them. It's also condescending and racist view of Ukrainians.
And what do you say finally to those? There is this. It led me to the question that the Ukraine and Russia, they would be always neighbors, and this is the case.
Unless Russia flies to the moon,
or
Ukraine
Russia flies to the moons.
Yes, we are hostages of geography, of history. Yes, we have a lot of, common heritage as well. And, apparently the only way for you to build your nation and the state, try to escape our embraces as far as possible. The problem is that you cannot do it only by military means. You cannot do it by building a border and the wall, Chinese wall between Russia and Ukraine, you can do it by building a viable state on the basis of rule of law, which will make us Russians, Ukrainians, in the sense, I remember when Ukrainians were looking at Poles, trying to understand Polish success, at least my relatives in Lviv. So Russians will be looking at you, thinking if Ukrainians could do that, aren't we much worse?